So, peace be upon you, and welcome to our weekly happiness question and answer show, where we really want to answer your questions about life. This show happens every Friday, 7 to 8 p.m. UK time. Go to Big Questions Answered. I'm trying to find my finger. BigQuestionsAnswered.com to find out about past and future shows. In the show, we talk about everything to do with life because everything affects our happiness. That includes the environment, for example, our purpose, and God. The answers I give will be based on logic, science, Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, amongst many religions. And let me get the finger right. Hello, Len.
Hi, Kevin.
Len will be answering based on his understanding of Christianity, esoteric spirituality, astrology, meditation, Kabbalah, Hermetic studies, and the law of attraction. So I'm always so happy having Len here. Let's get on with the questions. So let's see. Have we got any questions already? Send us my 8-year-old controller. Not yet. So let's get on with, we've got a few questions lined up from viewers who've been contacting me personally. Start from the top. Yeah. So this one there. Yeah. Okay. So we've got a timer. Len, if you'd like to go first, how can we stop the genocide of the Uighurs?
To be honest with you, I don't have an honest opinion about that. I don't have a view upon that. I don't know who the Uighurs are. All I can tell you from a soul perspective is that every soul that comes into the earth plane knows exactly what their path is going to be like, what the end's going to be like. They come in with their plan. They come in with their lessons they want to learn, with the experiences they want to have. They also have their karmic debt to settle. So if people go through suffering, it's a part of that process to clear karmic debt. Did you know that the earth plane is a very sought after plane? Because in one lifetime, you can clear enough karmic debt for 10 lifetimes. So people come in here to suffer for intense, short lifetimes, very intensely, in order to clear all the karmic debt. And then they pass back on. It helps with their ascension process. And that's all part and parcel of the soul journey and the soul process of clearing the debts and ascension. So this is pretty much what I can tell you. So I'm assuming that a lot of people come in and they know that they're going to be dying for some reason, and this is part of the journey. They know when they come into the earth plane what will happen.
Cool. I appreciate you trying your best to answer it despite not knowing about who the Uyghurs are. So I will, loads of people won't know who the Uyghurs are, and we need to, explain that in the beginning of my answer. So here we go. So the Uyghurs are a ethnic group, often known as Muslims, in China, and they've been put into concentration camps for about the last 10 years. Under horrific circumstances. So some people say they're being killed. There's all sorts of terrible news coming out of that. And so even the American president has talked to China about it recently. So what is the solution from a religious, or at least an Islamic point of view, which encompasses many different religions? Islam has this very specific quality about it. It compares itself strangely to olives and products of olives. Very strange maybe at first, but the idea is that it's very long lasting, or it looks at things at a long-term perspective, and that's really important. Sometimes we feel like, I want to save the world right now, but we don't realize the problems that have come to be, like the persecution of the Uyghurs, hasn't happened just by mistake. It's come through lots of different things that we've let go through moral lapses. And we need to spend time making ourselves better and making therefore our governments better, and then the long-term international relationships better, so these things don't happen in the future. Okay, so we've got, check if there's another question. It's a tough job, controller. My 8-year-old's doing there. Oh, we've got a question. So click on. Have you got it? Can you click on it? Did you click on it? Yep. There we go. Okay. Oh, yes, I forgot my neighbor. Yes, thank you. So my neighbor said he's going to be joining in. I haven't got your question written down. I know your question basically, but if you can, when you get a chance, think of your question. But for now, Sindus, you know what? Since I will pick up the first question because the time is running out until Narcissus comes with his question. So, how should we ever show or discuss our religion in public? I'm not sure if we discussed this one before. So, I think religion. First of all, one of the reasons why, for example, in France, they really don't like talking about religion, they think it causes problems, is because there's this idea that religion is pushed or enforced on people or shoved down people's throats. And that's really unfortunate because so many religions throughout time have always said that religion is a personal thing. So in Islam, for example, it says in the Quran, there should be no compulsion in matter of religion. Otherwise, religion is all about making life better for people. So why not share these different ideas nicely? So Len, whenever you're ready, you don't have to really wait for my timer thing. Whenever you feel like starting, you can answer the question.
Right, here we go. Click that timer. Here we go. All right. I used to have a religious aspect, Christianity, once upon a time, and we used to be taught, go out and teach, preach, tell people everywhere about this. And we used to get a lot of resistance. Now, if you look at a country like France and some other countries where the country is regarded and labeled as an atheist country or a secular country where they don't particularly ascribe to any particular or any specific religion, it pretty much allows people to make a choice for whatever religion they choose, whatever path they choose. They're free to choose without someone pushing or breathing down their neck or pushing it upon them. That is fine. And as long as no one else is pushing an agenda or a religion. Now, from my perspective, history has shown us that history has been not kind to people when it comes to religion. Religious belief systems, when it becomes a collective consciousness, has not been kind to groups of people. We've seen persecutions, we've seen wars. We remember the Crusades back in the 10th and 11th century. Not a good idea. So keep your religion to yourself. I don't necessarily ascribe to that, but I am very happy for people to keep it to themselves. That's my view on this.
Cool, thank you. And just to give you a break, I think I'll go first on the next one. So the question that me and my neighbor Narcissus have been talking about is the role of interest. So he started off simple, not specific to what we were talking about, but I was interested in your opinion on interest. So interest at first might sound like a really boring thing. What is interest? It's when you borrow money and then you have to give more money back. So you borrow money from the bank and then you have to give them more money than you borrowed in the first place. And so it's actually really destructive. And it's so destructive that different religions have warned against it. So, for example, did you know the only way governments pay for wars is through loans paid on interest? In fact, banks actually gave money to both sides of the war, the Nazis as well as the rest of the Europeans.
Yeah, nice.
So this is well known. So like Len is saying, so it's hugely destructive. That's only a tip of the iceberg. You might think the Second World War is bad enough as a reason to not use interest. But today, what happens is you might see a lot of the richest people in the world pushing things that are really destructive for our world, like, you know, pushing for oil, like even though we could be using electric cars more already. Interest makes you super greedy. And that's one of the reasons why it's so destructive. It makes you think about what you want now rather than what's good tomorrow. Go, your turn, Len.
Right.
It automatically starts up. So whenever you feel like it's a
Right.
rough thing. Yeah, this timer.
Good. For me, it's a matter of understanding what is interest part of. Interest is part of a system which we refer to as a control system, the financial control system. And the whole financial control system as we know it today is geared up to enslave people in debt. And national debt is probably been tripled over the last 20 years because of war, because we know that these big monetary moguls and financial institutions like the Bank of England and the American Federal Reserve, they fund both sides of whatever war because from their perspective, war is profitable. So we have a problem in this world where those who control the money in this world are doing so from a place of corruption and greed, and we need to recognize that. We need to understand that, and we need to say we don't want that. This is no longer serving our highest good, our best interest, and we need to eventually take a stand to see how these systems, control systems, need to come down. That's all I can tell you about interest. My view is control systems like the political control system, corruption in politics, corruption in finance, corruption in the sciences, the education systems, look at the people making money out of COVID vaccinations. They must all come down, not serving our best interest. Thank you very much on that.
No, thank you so much for sharing all those very important ideas. Okay, we've got another question. So I'm going to click it, but you don't forget, you can control it, Cinders. Anyway, so another friend of mine, you're all friends of mine, whether I know your faces or not, but I know one more. Okay, is faith healing relevant to COVID? Ooh, that's interesting. So faith and religion is relevant to COVID. I'll answer it this way. So very interestingly, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said it gave a solution to our current COVID crisis. And it was really simple and logical. He said that if you have a plague, and you can call COVID a plague, a disease that spreads really quickly as infectious, if you have a plague where you are, don't run from it. And if you hear about a plague in another place, don't go to it. In fact, he said it the other way around, but it means the same thing. Well, I'm getting into details there unnecessarily, but the point is that if we safely kept to our bubbles or had a strict lockdown in your particular area, if you know you have COVID, then COVID would have died long time ago. It really did not have to stay for a year like it has now. And we've got lots of examples in the Isle of Man, just, not too many miles from here, part of the UK, they've managed to get rid of COVID. They just had a strict lockdown. And that's it. So that's what I can say about faith generally in the role of dealing with COVID.
Yes. From a higher self perspective, if you're ready for me to start, here we go. From the higher self perspective, when we do our therapy, we are able to actually understand that everything is consciousness. And once you understand everything is consciousness, when you go into the subconscious collective of humanity through a hypnotherapy session, and you can use anybody who comes through your door as a client who needs help and ask them about it, you can speak to the consciousness of COVID, and somebody already has done so. And it is very possible to have that conversation and ask COVID, why are you here? What is it you are doing? Now, we know from the Higher Self Collective, the virus was created genetically in a lab in China, and that virus was released with a certain agenda, and that was part and parcel of a bigger agenda that was to reset this whole world system, the social interaction and engagement, the way we shop, the way we live, the way we engage in each other outside. So it is very possible to understand that from a COVID perspective. Yes, if you want healing, you can go into the subconscious, and the subconscious in the higher self can heal something like that. It is possible, but the higher self can also tell you it's not necessary to heal this. This thing will go away in a few days. provided that these are the conditions. So we have had some very interesting channelings on the COVID variant and the various varieties of it that's coming out now.
Thank you. We have a next question or point, continuation from my great neighbor. So he says, but in the same time, the banks are the ones that keep the capitalist world up.
Yes.
Thank you. That's a really good point. I really appreciate you explaining, asking that, neighbor. So we think that interest is a necessary part, but actually is a hugely destructive part. It's not. So interestingly, Islam, when talking about interest in the Quran, it says people say that interest is just another form of trade. In fact, it's unfair trade. If I go into, I'm gonna have to change these earphones, they keep falling out. That if what it does, it works in favor of the poor, and particularly my neighbor wants to get into property development. You should know that when my dad was young, which is a while back in the 50s, it only cost £2,000 to buy a house and your salary would be £1,000. And now, for the poorer section of society, it's about 50 times the price, because that's what interest does. It makes houses more available, and then the prices go up to match the available demand. And it basically makes house prices higher and higher. So it's not a necessary part of capitalism.
Right. I will start by saying the following as far as capitalism and money is concerned. The higher self collective have indicated that it's a control system. It's a control system that no longer serves the collective subconscious of humanity's highest good, and humanity has recognized that from a collective subconscious level. They foretell that within the next 5 to 10 years, that whole system, the control system of politics, or the political control system, the financial control system, will come crashing down, because it is not geared to carry on in this way. It cannot keep on inventing itself. I mean, look at debt. Debt in the world is a commodity that is being traded on its own. I see that if they need money, they'll just go to the printer and create money on paper and then keep printing it. It's a system that just can't keep going. It's not going to perpetuate itself for much longer. And as a result, we will need to see that come crashing down before we can ascend to the next dimension, which is going to be in the next 10 years, apparently, according to the higher self collective of the subconscious collective now. Within the next 10 years, we will see a lot of things come crashing down, systems that no longer serves our highest good. But it's all things that we recognize that we can't take this into the next dimension. They no longer serve our highest good. And trade will be based on services and goods instead of a money system. All money is energy anyway, so energy is spent in this way.
Cool. I do agree with some of those ideas, but we'll see when we get back to it. And I'll just ask another question. Come on. Okay, so we need to go to the new spinner. See if you can get to the spinner. Don't worry if my time's running out. I'll answer it quickly, sort of thing. So we've got a brand new spinner. Can you get to it? And can you click on it? Woo! And now, this is the first time Sindus is trying it. You have to go back to here and paste, and hopefully it'll work. No, you don't even have to do that. You can just right click. Okay, fine. Press enter. Awesome. What is the best way to... Oops, you have to click on it as well. It's quite a hard job, your job, controller. Okay, and you have to go back to the timer. Go on, you go back to the timer and I'll start answering the question. It'll probably run out of time. Don't worry, doesn't matter. Auto 43. Okay, that's all right. What is the best way to fix wealth inequality? Fantastic, because we're back to interest. Okay, so let's go into interest a little bit more carefully. Interest, what it does is the poor people generally speaking, the poor people who borrow money on interest, and they're the ones who suffer from interest. And it's the rich people who simply put their money into accounts, etc., or they're already the great landowners, and they receive money because of this interest system. So, in short, it's robs the poor to give to the rich.
Yes.
So that's where wealth inequality is coming from. Okay.
Right.
All right.
You
Okay.
you started late, so you do have
No,
another
no, no.
extra
It's okay.
30 seconds.
I'm fine. But I appreciate that. But just go for it, Len.
Right. To fix wealth inequality, we're going to need to change our thinking. That's going to be hard because right now we can't see beyond what is next. We will have to find a way to change our thinking to understand that money doesn't work well. No thing called economy doesn't work. We will have to find a way to say, if we invest our energy in other things, trading goods, trading services becomes a better form of trading, if you want to call it that. But eradicating the economy as we know it today, eradicating debt as we know it today, that needs to clear the level. It'll level the playing field, if I'm going to put it that way. Eradicate all debt. That will clear the playing field. That is my solution.
Cool. Well, debt is a huge problem. So, cool. All right. So, Sundas, go on. You have to practice using the spinner and get another question until. Oh, got another one. Another question from my good neighbor Narcissus. Okay, so you've clicked it. Good. I'll just wait for. I'll read the question while I wait for the red bit to happen and whatever. But don't you think, my neighbor says, that everything has to evolve the same as the economy evolves, the markets evolve, as well as every person should constantly evolve? Okay, so as always, I'm always trying to understand where the person's coming from when they're saying evolve. Like what, why would you point out this idea of evolve? I think there's a sense of religion is this ancient thing, and we have to move forwards with the time because religion doesn't know what it's talking about. That's what I'm only guessing, right? Okay, and so think about this. Religion, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism pointed this thing out like 2,000 years ago. We're the ones behind the times. We're using this super destructive system that is making massive wars possible, destroying the environment, because if anybody knows about how the economy works, you have to keep growing. If you have not just a capitalist system, capitalism is fine, but interest-based capitalist system, it forces you to keep making more and more because you borrow and you have to make more, you have to give more back, so you have to mine the world. So evolve, I think we need to listen to we have to realize that logically there must be a God, and that God has always been helping us. So it's not a case of evolving, it's about listening. Or maybe we need to evolve and catch up with religion, if anything. That's what I've got to say about that.
Yes.
You can start whenever you want. Yeah.
But I've bypassed my religious views on this long ago, and we literally go straight to the collective subconscious and the higher self collective from a hypnotherapy point of view, and we've listened to what some of the higher beings have to say about this thing called the economy and everything that's going on at the moment. And right now, these systems are being taken apart bit by bit from the higher perspective, and we will see it happening more and more within the next few years, to the point where unless we are willing to let them pull the rug from underneath us and we all come crashing down, or we change the way we think and do things with a bit more deliberate, concise effort, it's not going to end well for some people. Yes, some people will find it helpful and useful, and they'll be very happy to get out of their debt. And some people are not going to be happy at all, especially if you are very, very wealthy and you suddenly find you no longer have wealth accumulated in money in the bank. Well, in the Bible, We had an example of Abraham. Abraham was a very rich man. If you look at the historical Judaic scriptures on this father of both Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, we will find that Abraham was regarded as a very wealthy man, and he had a lot of cattle, lots and lots of cattle, and that was how his wealth was defined. Not in money, not in the banks, but in cattle, in what he owned.
Okay, thank you. Ascendus, are you ready for the next question? Awesome. Thank you, my 8-year-old daughter. Here we go. What will be the aftermath of the pandemic in your opinion, from an economic perspective? All right. So I think that the aftermath is only basically there's a couple of things that are happening. First of all, there's a pandemic that are pushing technology more, and that's actually making the rich richer, which in itself is not a bad thing, just because if people use their intelligence, then they should, benefit from that intelligence. So, like for example, Amazon, they've done very well. They realize the internet is here and they're selling things on Amazon, and we are choosing to use that. So those people are benefiting from that. And so for me, that's exciting. And I think that even myself, I'm working on technology that uses the internet more. Okay. But at the same time, capitalism using this interest-based system is still going on, and behind the scene, not very much behind the scenes, a lot of the richest people in the world are, for example, buying up lots of land and getting more and more control than they ever had before to control the world. So they already own most of the wealth of the world, and that's going to increase even more.
And the reason why they're buying all this land is because they know things are going to come crashing down. They've been listening to the hypnotherapy sessions recorded on YouTube, telling them these systems will be coming crashing down. So they're busy stocking up. When the food stores run empty, what are you going to steal? The TV or the can of baked beans? That kind of thing. They'll first steal the TVs, go home with it, and then steal the can of baked beans afterwards. But that's just a laugh. But yes, we do find that a lot of people, billionaires, are buying land and creating bunkers where they can go into hiding until this whole collapse of world systems are over. They are gearing up for it. Now, the Higher Self Collective has a lot to say about that, and there are lots of YouTube sessions where they are discussing that and talking about it, and you can go listen to it. My other half had a session recently with someone in our home, and they had a lot to say about what's coming, what's up ahead, which is fascinating to hear the higher beings talking about what they see. Because remember, the higher beings are talking from outside dimension of space and time. They can see future, past, everything as if it's already happening. Because from a higher dimensional perspective, everything happens at once, at the same time. So when they tell you that it won't be long, it's soon, we just wait and see. Because we are gearing up for it. These systems, control systems, are going to come crashing down.
Oh, interesting. Your idea is on how time works. Yeah, time is just an idea that we have in our head. So, cool. Sundus, you have to get to the next thing. It's a hard job, Sundus. My poor 8-year-old. I think I'm putting too much pressure on her. It's a hard job. It's a hard job, isn't it? So you have to go to the cat. Yep, good, very good. Okay, why doesn't God make everyone Muslim already? So that's an interesting question. That is actually your question, isn't it? Okay, that's my 8-year-old daughter's question. Okay, so, well, it's the same reason why everyone wasn't made Buddhist or Christian right in the
Hindu,
beginning.
yeah.
Exactly. So God has always given us the whole point of us being here. We're a very special creation that has the choice of doing right and wrong. Now, if God forced us to do things, then we wouldn't really have that choice of doing right or wrong.
Mm.
Now, you could say that, oh, well, Islam teaches you to be a better person and all this kind of stuff. Wouldn't it be just better to do that? In fact, the angels in the Quran asked God the same question. He said, why are you going to create these creatures who are going to cause bloodshed in the world? And God said, in a very complicated way, that basically us human beings have great potential for great good, but we've also got potential for great evil, and it's the great good that we
Mm.
were created for, but it has to, with great
Yes.
good comes great evil, and that's the choice we have to make.
Yes. It's a very
Yeah.
interesting conversation to be had, that one, because within us as the soul, within God, I think in the prophets of Isaiah, he's talking about God being God of evil and darkness, but as also a God of light. So understanding that the all that is has both aspects of duality, darkness and light, good and evil, but that's God in the macrocosm. And we are in the microcosm. Now, from a microcosmic aspect, according to Hermetics and the Kabbalistic esoteric traditions, we all have the capacity of good and evil. And we can all choose which way do we want to lean, depending on the influences and the people we hang out with and the experiences we sign up for. But at the end of the day, we can balance all of that, and we can follow what we call the middle path, the balanced path. And the balance is crucial in our ascension, in our journey forward for every soul. And this is where I feel that God is all that is a very diverse macrocosmic deity, where every possible experience you can imagine has to be allowed for within that. As Jesus says, in my Father's house are many mansions. It's about that diversity. So let the Buddhists come, let the Muslims come, let the Hindus come, and let every religious experience be a little step in the process of helping with the ascension.
Cool. Thank you very much. Okay, Sundus. Okay, I'm gonna do it. Where are we? We're in this one. Okay, cool. So, what is the role of self-denial and asceticism? I'm probably said it wrong. The person who gave me this question explained to me asceticism means like living a simple life. So hopefully that's correct. Okay, so what is I love this question, because some people, especially with a modern take on what I call modern take on Buddhism, it looks like the whole point is just to make your life really difficult and miserable, and that's not looking at things from the right point of view. So God has said in the Quran and different teachings that life is about actually finding happiness in this world, and if you don't find happiness in this world, you won't find it in the next. So that's the first point of view. Now, if if you're, say, studying a book really carefully and you're really enjoying it, you don't see, if you look at the person from the outside, you'll see them as like staring at the book, and you'll be like saying, why is that person staring at the book? Maybe the purpose of life is to stare at a book, but no, it's to develop yourself, and you're just seeing it from the outside. So it's not just about self-denial. Self-denial just gives you a healthier balance in life, and it makes you happier.
I find that self-denial is part and parcel of understanding that you have enough for yourself and some to give away. It balances out dealing with corruption and greed. You know, if you become greedy, you start taking away from others. You're not helping others. Service to self as opposed to service to others. There has to be a balance there. And a lot of the light worker community where we're working in deals with the purpose of service to others, where we know we cannot pour from an empty vessel, but when we have enough, you can give away and you can share with others. And the whole idea with self-denial is about understanding that If you don't need it, why hoard it? Why store it up? Even Jesus had something to say about people who store up their riches and their wealth just so that the moths can, the worms can consume them if it's lying somewhere in a storage room. Now, happiness, money is never going to make you happy. Things is never going to make you happy. I remember when we had our son telling us when he was 6 years old, and he said to his dad, "Dad, your job is to make me happy." One of the first lessons we had to teach him was only you can make you happy. And happiness comes from within. When you are aligned with source, you are aligned with your soul and your soul purpose and your soul path, then you will find that happiness. And meditation is the easiest way to do that. Time's up.
Cool. You want to click on it? You can click on it this time. Yeah. Only when it shows up there. Yeah. Okay, first of all, I'm going to take a few of my seconds to say thank you for all the questions. I always love it and I really appreciate it. So that's one thing I really want to say before I get on with the rest of the questions. So is it okay to be bad to... Okay, let me read it again. Is it okay to be bad to stop bad? For example, if you want to stop a corrupt politician and the only way possible to stop them by being corrupt yourself, is that okay? I get the question. Fantastic question, in fact. Okay, is there sort of like a greater good, like if you do bad things to make better things happen in the long term? I get it. Okay, so different religions, including Islam, is all about following the law. And if you don't like a particular country, then you have to, or a city where the law is, you might have tribal places where cities have different laws, then you leave that place. And in the long term, things will get better as long as you become a better person. It is not okay to start doing bad things, because then you set a bad example and only more bad things will continue to happen, because you might temporarily fix a problem, but the other people see the way you did a bad thing to make a temporary good thing to happen, and they might see, oh, I'm going to do another bad thing. But what is good and bad? Good and bad will get really mixed up if everybody starts doing bad things. Oh, did the time run out? Okay, fine.
Yes.
All right.
Right.
Okay.
Can you remember the movie V for Vendetta?
Love it.
Right. Do you know history? The French Revolution, when you had corrupt elites, corrupt leaders, rulers, and the only way to get rid of the corrupt rulers was to overthrow those governments, which is in essence illegal, but for the collective's conscious evolutionary path and process, they had to get rid of these baddies, and that was the way they had to do so. Now, right, V for Vendetta is a typical example of a corrupt politician. Now, Dolores Cannon wrote various books called Conversations with Nostradamus, Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, where she had some people that she took into a trance state and started talking to them. Turns out they were past life students of Nostradamus. Nostradamus picked up on that and immediately started talking back to her. And they established a connection. And Nostradamus predicted that the time will come where people will start assassinating corrupt politicians, to the point where politicians will fear for their lives because they are being dropped like flies. They will be shot and they will be executed because people will get tired of the corruption in politics and political realms. They would be scared to be public politicians again. So I can literally see how that will come about, considering what's going on in our corrupt political arena nowadays. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you. Okay. My neighbor says, no, continuing from the conversation about interest. And I, by the way, I really thank him for continuing this conversation, because that's what I wanted from him. I said, please debate with me. So, no, he says, I mean financially. I've heard people complaining about 10 years ago that the rent was £200 cheaper and lifestyle as well. But as these 10 years, they haven't evolved at all, while inflation came. So what you're saying is we've had inflation. That means the value of our money is decreased, but you're saying the rents have stayed the same. That's actually very interesting.
Yes.
Maybe that's true, I suppose.
Mm.
And that's actually because you're kind of agreeing with me, because interest rates are record lows. And a friend alerted me about this really crazy thing, which is actually an Islamic idea. Negative interest rates are being used now. Okay, I was shocked, yeah, but then he showed me an article. It's like, okay, fine, in Japan, in so many countries, they're starting to use negative interest rates. And negative interest rates, just to tell you, are basically an Islamic idea because it encourages money to go around. It's called money velocity, something Len kind of pointed out. Okay, if you keep moving money around faster, it benefits more people. And so maybe what you're saying is, I agree with it, in short.
Well, if you look at the history of what happened back in 2008, we had this bubble that burst. It was a property bubble. It was about loans, and people were taking out mortgages, and everything went wrong as a result of that. And that affected the whole world economy. Now, the interesting thing is, debt will never become less, even though interest rates drop. As a result, rent will not necessarily drop because people still have to cope with the debt. So things will become cheaper, inflation will go lower, but there are certain things because of the debt that will still remain high. And that's part of this beast called the economy that is not helping. It's not working in our best interest anymore. So nothing evolved there. We know nothing has changed as far as the property market is concerned. And this is my view, is that whole animal has to come crashing down. And that's all I can say. If you want to add to this, there's half a minute for you available there.
Oh, okay. Sure. Okay, let me see. People coming 10 years. So I did struggle with fully understanding the question, to be honest, but there is a second part to it. So you know what? I'll take half a minute, or the 16 seconds, and the property market evolved. Okay, so it's kind of continuing from this comment to this comment. So let's make it another kind of question altogether about this idea of property market evolving. So to be honest, Narcissus, I'm not really understanding the question about this thing evolving. I'm really sorry. I really want to help as much as possible in answering the question, but definitely what's happening is that okay, let's just say, I don't know, since the pandemic, how much. I would say we must have inflation because we're printing money like crazy, okay? Which means the value of money is decreasing. And so I don't know if the rent has gone up much. Our rent hasn't gone up for a year, but you don't expect rent for a personal person, rent to go up necessarily. So I'm not sure about what's happening there. But the point is, generally, what interest does, if you have interest, because we're talking about interest if it was a normal rate, 4%, 5%, whatever, okay, that makes it possible for us to buy more and more expensive houses. And as Len pointed out, we had a massive crash because we were able to buy houses that we can't afford, which sounds like a complete contradiction. How can you buy houses that you can't afford? The answer is interest. Okay. And interest, the dangerous thing about interest that's mentioned in the Quran, it's actually mentioned after the idea of giving charity. What interest does, it makes you super greedy and selfish, which is why the super rich are so careless about the state of the world. They just care about being a bit more richer, even if they're destroying their own planet. So I hope that explains somehow how dangerous interest is. So yeah, we're continuing. So you were continuing with this question, Len. Yeah, so you can say more about it.
I'm looking at people like Jeff Bezos, the former owner or CEO of Amazon, and I'm looking at the billions that he owns, and Mark Zuckerberg and the billions that he owns, and you're looking at people still homeless on the street. I have a problem with that. How How can they be allowed to be homeless on the street when you've got people with billions in their bank accounts? Why can they not tax companies like Amazon and Starbucks appropriately so that they can eradicate this level of poverty? It's not that we don't have enough money. Clear all the debt. There's enough money to make every person on the world a millionaire. Why is it not done yet? This is where this economy beast is no longer working in our best interest. It's no longer serving us. We need to get rid of it. That is our view. This is my view from the higher self collective, not just me speaking. But you can go to your subconscious, and your subconscious will tell you the exact same thing in a QHHT session that we have for our clients in hypnotherapy. They will tell you the exact same thing. Thank you for listening.
Cool. Have you clicked on it? You have to go a bit higher. Send this. Cool. Okay. Is interest the only issue you find with the capitalist system? So this is my friend Marco joining from Iceland, by the way. So really appreciate that. So is that the only system? Generally, I like the question because it gets me to explain that I'm not against capitalism. Capitalism has a very important function that cannot be done automatically. In some ways, it is what I would describe as natural. Okay, and again, this is based on my religious understanding. It puts wealth into the right places. When you have a communist system, you need a human being to decide where every tiny bit of wealth should go. Should we make more lollipops? Should we do this? Should we do that? It's way too complicated. There are millions and millions of transactions, moving of money going around, and it's not possible. So capitalism, I want to make clear, is not a bad thing by itself. It's an interest-based capitalist system that is a problem. Also, capitalism or money does not have any morality by itself. So capitalism by itself, if you leave it alone, can do all sorts of bad things. We might decide to become more drug dealers or something. You know, if we leave things to capitalism, we need morality. Without morality, society will be destroyed. We will choose evil choices that will harm the whole of society, and things only get better when we, over a long period of time, consistently choose to do the right thing. Again, that's in Islamic teaching, to be consistent in your good deeds. Things don't change just like that.
Yes. From a soul perspective, we've got the soul within us. We've also got the ego. The ego is your conscious mind. The conscious mind thinks he's in charge, but really he is not. And at this point, he has not been told that yet. And when somebody begins to realize, I am a soul, I am not this facade who I seem to be here from a conscious perspective. The problem we have with most bankers, most politicians, most people controlling these control systems is they operate this from the system of the conscious mind, the ego. And that's probably where the problem lies. We need to find a way to bypass the ego, bypass the conscious mind, and go towards soul. From a soul perspective, you will find the solutions become very evident, very, very clear. But for as long as you have politicians, economists, financial and banking people in charge who control these systems from the ego, you're going to have a problem. That's all I can tell you.
It's amazing. We used to struggle with 1 minute, and now 1 minute 30 seconds. Now we're dealing with it okay now. What do you think, Len? You've got
I'm keeping my answers short and sweet.
Yeah, I think we're learning from the process, me and you. It was so hard the first time. Anyway, but we're still not perfect at all. Like you can see, I'm putting the questions at the wrong time. But anyway, let's quickly get to the next question. Where are you? The next question. Actions. Oh, okay, here we go. So, what actions benefit you in the next life? Another beautiful question, and I'm going to try to give it from as much from a psychological as well as a religious point of view. So, We have to realize as you get older, things don't make you happy. What makes you happy are good deeds. Okay, so that's a really subtle point that is so important to our modern lifestyle, which is we're told in adverts, buy stuff, buy stuff, buy stuff, and we forget the very subtle nature of happiness. So by buying stuff, we are our level of consciousness is very, let's say, low, like an animal just feeding by buying and things like that. Okay, so what's that got to do with the next life? What I'm saying is that our good deeds are the things that will become more obvious in the next life. How do we know that? There's a very interesting teaching in the Quran I'll very briefly talk about. It talks about the sperm cell, which, if you don't know, if you're very young, it's just like a little dot thing. It's used as evidence for the existence of the next life. What happens at each stage from sperm to baby to human being is that you get a higher and higher in awareness. So higher and higher in awareness is all about more the subtle things like being good. So your goodness will affect you most.
Yes.
That's it.
It's part of our evolutionary process. We are souls. You don't have a soul, you are a soul. There are two levels of reality operating here. There's a soul level, and at soul level, you're on a journey, you're on an evolutionary path. You go through reincarnated lifetime after lifetime after lifetime to learn your lessons. You plan your lives, you plan where your experiences are, you plan your lessons, and then every lesson you learn helps you in the next life, in the next life, in the next life. At this level, the conscious mind level, you think this is the only level because your conscious mind thinks it's control. You don't know if there's going to be anything beyond it. You get promised heaven, you get promised whatever, Valhalla, whatever your religious offering is. But at the end of the day, the higher self collective teaches you that we all go up and down between the astral planes. There's the higher astral plane, there's the middle astral, and there's the lower astral. The lower astral is where all the murderers, the robbers, the killers, the criminals tend to go because they are of a lower vibration. You go what suits your vibrational level for the life you had. So if you aspire to be a good person, your vibration gets raised. You end up going to the higher astral levels. That's pretty much it. After each lifetime, you go through a life review. There's no God's going to judge you and tell you you're going to go to hell because you did this, or you're good, you're going to go to heaven, and Father Abraham waiting at the pearly gates for you, and off you go. You've been a good boy, blah, 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 blah. You go through a life review by your guides who helped you in this lifetime plan your life. They'll tell you what lessons you were successful in and what you failed in, and you can plan to go through this lesson again in the next life. So that's pretty much it.
Click. What happens when you die? I'm glad that this question's given me a bit more time to explain what I was trying to explain earlier on. I'm going to talk about the different stages from sperm cell to baby to human being to give you an idea of what will happen next, just as a pattern. So when you are a sperm cell, this little dot of a thing, your awareness is very little. You're almost like a germ or something. And then when you get into the mother's egg, that's kind of a different world. And to do that, to get from the sperm cell to the mother's egg, you have to destroy yourself. The sperm cell has to destroy itself. This little thing has to destroy itself, literally explode, to get to the next stage. So it's a sort of death that takes you to the next stage of, you might call, evolution within your own life. And then as you become a baby, as you grow into a baby, you become far more aware. You have far more senses, so many different organs, your heart, your ears, your eyes, your feelings, whatever, and your awareness grows. And then you're thinking, when you're on the mother's belly or the womb, that's the whole universe. Your eyes are closed and your experience of the world is very tiny. And then you have to die from that. You don't literally die, but you go through a traumatic stage where you leave that life and you become a human being. And that is going to happen again in the next life. Even higher evolution. Let's go. Anyway, go on then.
Right, what happens when you die? What happens when you die is you have your past life review and you plan your lessons again, and you can spend some time. A lot of people find they need time to rest. A lot of souls, I'm going to use the word, find they have time to rest. They'll spend some time resting. There's a place on the astral planes where they can go, and then they can plan on which planet they want to, because remember, Earth is not the only planet you can go to. I've spent past lives on other planetary systems in the Pleiades myself. Even in Arcturus. Now, according to Edgar Cayce, the Arcturian system is the highest evolved planetary system civilization in this galaxy, because they span fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensions as far as consciousness is concerned. All right, so that's pretty much it. The Earth is just one of the planes you can come to. You can decide where you want to go. You can decide what lessons you want to learn. You can decide what experiences you want to have. And you can also decide who's going to be part of that experience. Now, one of the problems with the Earth plane is when you get here, you forget who you are. You forget your plans. And you have to try and dig into your subconscious to try and find that and align yourself with that again. Where there are systems you can go to where you'll remember fully who you are when you get there. Thank heavens, when you pass over, when you die, your consciousness comes back. All your memories comes flooding back, so you'll remember everything again. That's the most amazing thing. There's no God's going to judge you and send you to hell thing. That's nonsense at all.
Okay, so do you want to click on it? The what? Ugh, I am definitely going to change these things. Okay. All right. Okay. The world is heading towards negative interest rates. What effect will this have? Okay. I pointed this out, but thank you, because I'm going to talk about a very interesting example that happened in which talks about this essentially negative interest rates and how it massively helped a little town's economy. So after a very much earlier 1929 Wall Street crash, when the world economy really collapsed, okay, there was a town in Austria called Wurgel. You can Google this and find out more about it. And, like all the other towns around them, there were huge problems, financial problems. People were very poor. They decided to make up their own currency. Now, you can't just make up your own currency. It has to be dependent on something. So the little money they had, they put it on one side, and they based their money based on that tiny bit of real money that they had. Okay. And so they had two very simple rules: no interest, and you get taxed for not spending your money. That moved the money around really fast, and the town became really rich. That's the short version. Money velocity. Okay.
I'm not an economist. I can't tell you what happens. I can only tell you what we're hearing from the higher vibrational beings, the higher dimensional beings, and they're telling you all these control systems are coming to an end. Something new is coming that's going to be more beneficial, easier, much nicer to work with, but we're going to have to get through this ourselves. Once you get to the other side, from a fifth dimensional point of view, it's going to be much easier, because you will have your conscious source connection, you'll have your higher self connection, and you will have a much clearer guidance than you have right now. This plane that we are in is not helping us, because it's very difficult to try and find the direction you need to go into. Right, but at the end of the day, they all say that the control systems of politics and finances come crashing down, and something new and something better is coming. And I'm looking forward to that.
Sorry if I was talking to my controller a little bit, because I was telling her we don't need another question because we're out of time. And to finish off, I want to say two things. First of all, thank you so much, Len. I know you come lots of times, but I shouldn't be less grateful. I really appreciate it. Okay, it just makes the show so much more dynamic and interesting and all that kind of stuff. Otherwise, I would just be talking. And to thank you, I just wanted to say again, if you want to contact Len, his details, his website is, you want to click, oh, very good,
There
Sundus.
you
His
go.
website's here as well. Look at it. There it is. Don't worry about my finger. Also, it's linked in the description and how to find him. There's a bit of kind of whatever. Yeah. And the other thing I want to say is thank you, all the questions. That was phenomenal. Thank you. I have a puny little tiny show, and I appreciate all you friends just helping out in the show. Really appreciate it. Bye. Peace
Have
be
a nice
upon you.
evening. Bye, everybody. Take care. Have a nice weekend.